everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Pump It Up podcast, a show about crane pumps and systems, the wastewater industry, and modern manufacturing. Our topic today is the pressure sewer market and our new Razor grinder platform. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and today we will be talking with Connor Alexander, a pressure sewer market manager here at CP&S. Hi, Connor. How are you?
Hi, Elizabeth. I'm doing great.
Good, good. Well, I just want to first thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. So we're just going to dive right in. Would you be able to tell us a little bit
Sure.
about your background?
Sure. Yeah, I've been involved in the pressure sewer industry in a number of different companies for about 19 years, but throughout all that time, held a number of roles, but they've all sort of revolved around pressure sewer and grinder pumps. I've been at Crane for 5 years now, and outside of that, I worked for a grinder pump distributor where I was the director of operations, in addition to a number of sales roles before that.
That's great. So you've definitely been in the industry for a long time.
Absolutely.
So for those that don't know, what is pressure sewer?
So pressure sewer is an alternative collection system for wastewater. So it's purely, we like to say it's purely transportation, not treatment or anything like that. But what it allows you to do is get around some of the restrictions that are in place with gravity sewer through the use of grinder pumps, where there's a pump at each property that operates in a network and grinds up the wastewater and then pumps it through small diameter pipe to its ultimate destination, which could be a lift station, it could be a manhole, or it could even be all the way to the treatment plant.
How long has pressure sewer been around? I know you briefly mentioned it a little bit, but has it been a technology that's been around for a long time?
It's been around for quite a while, actually. It really started taking off in the early 70s, but it was added to the 10 state standards in the early 80s, which really started to ramp things up. Throughout the decades, it's been a relatively niche technology, more of a tool or a solution for difficult applications. But these days, as there's less and less land that's easily developable, you find it used quite a bit more.
Yeah, and I know some of the competitive technology, you briefly mentioned it, is the gravity technology that has been in place for a long time. What are some of the main benefits of pressure sewer over that gravity sewer system?
Right. So really the benefit is you don't need to worry about gravity at all. Obviously, in traditional wastewater collection systems, you need to maintain a pitch. You can only go so deep with your pipe, and once you reach a certain depth, you need to use a lift station. So some of the problems with gravity, despite the fact that it is it's a great ideal technology, is that it requires costly lift stations. It requires a constant downward slope. So it can be very difficult, particularly in terrain that is rocky or hilly, or areas with high groundwater. So it allows you to avoid that through this small diameter pipe. And that's why the pumps are grinder pumps, so that they can grind everything up, fully macerate the wastewater, and then pump it right underneath the frost line, essentially. So, a 2-inch pipe installed under frost line, much easier to install than an 18-foot deep 12-inch gravity line.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that has less of an impact on the environment around the installation too, as well.
Absolutely, both upfront and during normal operation. Upfront, obviously, there's a large environmental impact. A lot of these systems are used where there is existing infrastructure, and uprooting all of that can lead to extremely costly construction and restoration. But then also during a normal operation, gravity sewers tend to leak. They suffer from what we call I&I, or inflow and infiltration. And that's something that can both be a negative impact on the environment as wastewater gets into our water table.
Right.
And then the opposite's also true. You get groundwater that enters our wastewater systems, which can be costly to treat. We don't want to treat groundwater, we want to treat wastewater. Pressure sewer systems eliminate inflow and infiltration. It's a completely sealed system. And so both in the upfront installation and through the operation, it's a very green, environmentally friendly solution.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure that's going to have a huge impact on just the future of wastewater as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like that these systems can be fairly complex. What steps normally go into the design for a pressure sewer system?
Right. So pressure sewer design, proper pressure sewer design is very critical. I like to say that you can have the best pump in the world. It can be installed by the best contractor in the world, but if the system's not designed properly, then you could potentially have issues in the future. Really need all three of those pillars. When you're designing a system, you have to first calculate the flow from the system. There are a number of techniques that are used to do this. And once you determine the flow, you're going to then size the pipe. When you size the pipe, much like with gravity sewer, you want to ensure that you're getting proper scouring velocity through the pipe, meaning you want things moving along quickly so that solids don't settle out, you don't get blockages or odor issues or other problems. And then once you size the pipe, you have to make sure it's laid out in a way that makes sense. You want to be efficient when you're laying out that pipe, and you want to make sure that there's the retention time in that system's low. And what I mean by that is you want everything moving through that pipe to your ultimate discharge point as quickly as possible, so that the wastewater doesn't turn septic, which can cause corrosion issues and other issues. So there's a lot that goes into the design, but the biggest things are that pipe sizing and layout.
Okay. And does Crane Pumps and Systems offer any type of design services for these complex systems?
Yes, absolutely. We do design services free of charge. We utilize a program called KY Pipe, which is a hydraulic modeling software, so that we can actually not only design these systems, but model them and really show them in operation.
And do you do that, or do you have a team that helps you with that?
We've got a great team here. I do plenty of it myself, but we've got a dedicated team here at Crane that is purely dedicated to these system designs.
Okay, yeah, that's great. What types of pumps are used in pressure sewer applications? I know you mentioned grinder pumps.
Yes, so these systems exclusively use grinder pumps, which is a type of submersible pump with a grinding assembly on the bottom, again, in order to allow you to pump through those small diameter pipes. There are a couple of different types of grinder pumps out there in the market, but typically you'd see a 1 or a 2 horsepower grinder style pump in these systems.
Okay, and what is the difference between, for say, a grinder pump and a chopper pump, for example?
Sure. So a grinder pump, again, it is fully grinding up all of the wastewater, and it's doing that so that you can pump that wastewater through a small diameter pipe. It is not designed to be used in excessively difficult situations. I mean, obviously, these are designed to be as reliable as possible, but and there are some applications that are particularly troublesome. Chopper pumps are really the solution for those types of applications, whereas a grinder pump, you're not grinding just because you've got a difficult application. You're really just trying to grind up regular residential wastewater, residential and light commercial.
Okay, and are those residential and commercial the main focuses for applications, or are there other ones that you put a grinder pump into?
Yeah, I mean, you can put a grinder pump into a number of different applications. For these small, lower horsepower grinder pumps we're talking about, typically you would see these in residential neighborhoods or strip malls, things like that. But you can certainly use a grinder pump in a municipal lift station up to a certain size, of course. Really any application where you're typically looking at relatively low flow and moderate to high head.
Okay. I know there's a couple other technologies that go into grinder pumps. What are some of the benefits of using centrifugal over progressive cavity grinders?
Right. So I mentioned that there's a couple of different types of grinders that are used in these systems. We make several different types ourselves just to have a number of different tools in our toolbox. Progressive cavity pumps are one type. They're typically used in a very low flow or higher pressure situation. The centrifugal pumps, typically we like to use a 2-stage centrifugal style grinder. That's our go-to in these systems just because of their flexibility. They are capable of pumping against very high pressure. they can also put out a good amount of flow, which, as I mentioned, it's important to keep that scour and velocity going throughout the system to make sure everything stays clean and scoured. And the centrifugal pumps are very good at that. And one of our two-stage centrifugal pumps can scour a 2-inch pipe on its own, which makes it easy in system design to get that system right in that sweet spot. So I tend to prefer those just because of the flow. And then if you ever have any closed valves or blockages in the system, they're not going to damage themselves.
Okay. And what are some of the products that Crane Pumps and System offers, whether they're centrifugal or progressive cavity?
So again, we offer our two-stage Razor grinder. We also make that in a single stage application for lower head and higher flow if needed. And we also have what we call our turbine grinder for special very high head applications. And we make all types of grinder pumps, both pumps themselves as well as retrofit kits and complete packages. So we really make everything from the pump itself all the way up to a more heavy-duty, complicated duplex prepackaged system and everything in between.
Yeah, so it sounds like Crane Pumps and Systems is really offering that full package, whether it's from design all the way up to help with installation and that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We really want to get involved in the system as a whole. We don't look at a grinder pump as just a pump we're trying to get out the door. We look at these systems as large entities, right? So we frequently get involved in the design years before they break ground. We offer installation and maintenance training for a municipality's teams before these projects start. Throughout the construction, we offer startup training, and our channel partners offer startup services, which is another key component here. And throughout the life of the system, we're available for support. I mean, I've often supported projects that are having either having issues or looking for advice years, even decades in some cases, after the pumps have gone in the ground. So not only do we focus on supporting these pressure sewer projects throughout their life, but we also get intimately involved in them years before a single pump is sold.
Yeah, that's amazing. What does that average timeline normally look like when you have an installation that's going to be upcoming?
It's going to vary. It could be a new development project that is going in across 10 phases, which could last a decade, or it could be just a handful of units that are sold a week after I hear about the project. Typically when we hear about a larger project, which could be new construction, it could be a septic replacement project or a gravity sewer replacement project. Usually it's about 12 to 18 months from when we first hear about the project, first get involved with design, and then when the project ultimately bids. But some projects are shorter, some are longer. But for the most part, pressure sewer projects do certainly have a long lifespan.
Yeah, and how do you deal with the changing technology? I know since these have longer timelines, some new products might come out when in the middle of design. Do you ever have to go back in and change those specs?
In some cases we do, but typically, we are working with the engineers on a weekly, if not daily basis. So, we're communicating if there's changes in the project's needs or if a new technology becomes available. We've got some great relationships with these design engineers, and we can make tweaks as things happen.
Yeah, that's great. One of the new platforms that CPNS has released is that Razor Grinder platform. What was the main purpose of coming out with that product line?
Right. So the Razor is our newest pressure sewer pump line, and there were a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to not only modernize our grinder pump offering, but we also wanted to bring all of our different pumps under one umbrella. We had a number of different grinder pumps or tools in our toolbox, and all of them were developed and created in a different decade, essentially. And so being able to modernize them, create a commonality of parts and appearance is something that made it more convenient for us and for our customers. However, while we were going through that process, we also wanted to ensure that we were developing a product that made sense for today's wastewater stream.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we've certainly all experienced is a changing wastewater stream. People are using more flushables, things like Swiffers, wet wipes, etc., and people are using less water at the same time as appliances try to become more eco-efficient and water efficient. So we're using less water and we're flushing more things down the drain, which means our solids content in our wastewater is drastically going up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just one example of the changing market, and we wanted to take a look at that. And in that case, we developed a new style cutter that is more resistant to those fibrous solids. We also wanted to make something that was easier to work on. It's a mechanical device, so at some point it's going to need service, and we wanted to ensure that the service entity is able to get the customer up and running as quickly as possible. So we looked at the state of wastewater, and if we were developing a grinder pump from scratch on a clean sheet of paper, how would we design it today and why? And really that's the approach we took.
Yeah, I know that serviceability factor is really big with the Razor Grinder platform. I know one of our engineers told me that you can take it apart with just one tool, which is just amazing in my mind.
Yes, absolutely. One tool, you can take apart the whole pump. You can get into all the way up to the seals and the motor. It's very easy to service. Even I can do it, and I'm not the most mechanically savvy guy. But yeah, certainly something that was important. Serviceability, weight of the pump is another major factor for operators. That was something that when we went out and spoke to customers when we were in the design phase, they advised that weight of the pump was a major concern. These guys are pulling pumps all day long. They're moving them around the shop. They're loading and unloading trucks, and every couple of pounds makes a big difference. And so our engineers worked very hard to create a pump that was very robust, all cast iron, stainless parts, but was as light as possible.
Yeah, and I'm sure that plays a big role, especially when these systems that have hundreds and hundreds of pumps. I'm sure that can be really taxing on the people that have to maintain them.
Yeah, hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. I mean, there's some very large systems out there, and these guys are dealing with these types of pumps every day, and we want to make sure that their lives are as easy as possible.
Yeah, and does the interchangeability of pumps play a role in that as well?
Oh, certainly. One of the things that we did when we developed the Razor was we made sure that it was completely backwards compatible with our legacy product. Our pumps, one of the great features is our plug-and-play cord, and you can unplug an old style pump and plug in a new style pump without any issue. And then also, we made it as easy to retrofit into other styles of pumps as well. So if a customer's having trouble with with some of the pumps in their system, we want to make it as easy as possible for them to adapt our pump to their system. So that was another design goal, was to make it very easy to install, whether it is install one of our systems or install somewhere else.
Being able to interchange, I'm sure, has also really helped our distributors too with stocking things on their shelves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Both in terms of being able to interchange the pumps in various applications or with legacy product, as well as creating much more of a commonality among parts between our different styles of pumps, which was something else that we wanted to do. Yeah, in general, we want to make it as easy for our channel partners and the maintenance entities as possible.
Has the Razor Grinder changed how Crane Pumps and Systems markets pressure sewer systems at all?
I think that as we move forward, pressure sewer is going to become a much more pervasive technology. I don't think it's changed the way that we go to market. A lot of the advantages of a pressure sewer system in general remain the same. Mm-hmm. However, some of the details on the pump are going to make it more reliable, which makes the solution a little bit easier to swallow. Some maintenance entities or municipalities, they see pressure sewer and they worry that, we're adding 100 lift stations to maintain to our system. They're used to lift stations that they visit weekly. They're constantly performing preventative maintenance on. And really with pressure sewer, that's not the case. We find that the mean time between service calls on these stations is, 8, 10, 12 years in that range. And with some of the features we've incorporated into the Razor, we feel that they're going to be even more reliable, and we're going to increase that mean time between service calls, perhaps to to 13 or 15 years. So that's going to make it an even more attractive option, I think, for some of the potential customers. So I think some of the features and benefits of the Razor are fantastic, and they strengthen the pressure sewer solution. But as far as general benefits to the system, I think they remain consistent.
Okay, and in that design phase of the Razor grinder, was there done anything differently on the engineering side that kind of changed the way CP&S kind of goes to market with a product?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that when we looked at the design of this pump, we wanted to eliminate a number of problems, right? We wanted to eliminate jamming with our cutter. We wanted to eliminate lengthy repairs by making it easy to work on. We wanted to ensure that our hydraulic was as wide as possible so that, one pump could cover a large variety of installations. I mean, when you go into a system, you want to make it as simple as possible, right? Both in terms to work on and as well as making the system predictable. So being able to use one pump in a system, regardless of whether the home is in the front of the system, in the back of the system, at the bottom of a hill, at the top of a hill, I think makes it very very easy. When someone has to go on a service call in the middle of the night, they know that wherever they go, there's going to be one type of pump that's interchangeable.
Right.
And so making it consistent, making it flexible, and making it reliable, I think are all things that are critical for designing a pump.
Yeah, definitely. And I know one other thing that has really changed that we did differently with this product line is that we used an industrial designer from the very beginning. And that really helped us
Mm.
try to see that interchangeability factor from start to finish between all of the different pumps that we were going to be offering on this line.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we utilized industrial designer in the both the practicality of the pump and as well as the form factor. So not only does it have a number of features, it's very flexible in terms of its adaptability, but it's also a nice pump to look at, which isn't bad thing either.
That is true. That's true. I know one thing also with the design of this pump is that with the curves, it makes it a lot easier to wash it down. So again, coming back to that maintenance and serviceability factor, just a little bit easier, just that
Hmm.
next step.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of attention to detail went into the design of the pump, and we wanted to incorporate as many of those serviceability features and benefits as we could.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the future of the wastewater market, where do you see it going, specifically pressure sewer in the future?
Well, there's a couple of ways to answer that. I think that pressure sewer is going to be more widely utilized. We see the market growing every year, and that's because, as I mentioned earlier, there's less land that's easy to bring utilities to, essentially. And so as these areas grow, we're seeing a lot of pockets of the country just explosively growing. You're going to see contractors and municipalities looking for alternative solutions, which is what we provide. Another thing that we're seeing is a lot of failing septic systems. Septic systems installed in the 60s and 70s are failing across the country, particularly in the Southeast, and a very affordable and environmentally friendly solution is replacing these septic systems with a grinder pump system where they can actually collect and treat the wastewater. So I think a combination of those two things, we're going to see a lot of growth in the industry. I think we've got a great solution here, and we're just going to be seeing more and more of it. I think we're going to see more turnkey projects where an entire neighborhood is just served exclusively by a pressure sewer system. So on that side, I think we're going to see a lot of growth. And then the other piece of that is technology changes, right? As something gets more widely utilized, you tend to see more technology changes. And we're seeing that here too. I think that reliability is going to be a major a major factor. What can we introduce to these systems to make them more reliable in terms of cutter, as we're talking about advanced cutting technology, in terms of serviceability, in terms of level controls. Level controls, we've used floats for many, many years. Is that going to continue, or what's going to be the next big advancement in level controls? So there's a lot of different things moving. And then finally, I see the industry as a whole gravitating towards monitoring and service monitoring, and that's something that is starting to become affordable and attractive for some municipalities. To cut the homeowner out of the equation and be able to service these and be notified when they need service, or perhaps even before they fail. How can we get to that pump before it could be a costly repair and it might be an easy thing. So, I'm seeing a lot in the industry around that monitoring, around reliability, and I think as the technology becomes more and more widespread, we're going to continue to see that.
Yeah, those are some great points. And then I know that along with CP&S's development, that voice of customer is always super important. So I know that will continue to play a role in how we see the future wastewater market and what kind of technologies we're going to pursue in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid, so to speak. We always, whenever we develop a new product, we conduct a very thorough VOC, or voice of the customer, where we talk to our customers, whether it be our channel who's selling our product, or end users, or engineers, installers. I mean, there's a lot of different parties that are involved in pressure sewer systems, and we want to make sure we're hearing from all of them. We're getting feedback from all of them, because an engineer is going to have a vastly different opinion than a contractor, than a channel partner, than an end user, right? So we want to hear from all of them so that we can take that feedback into account. That the pump weight is a good example of that. We didn't have that anywhere on our radar when we started the development of the RZR. In fact, we were going to incorporate a few features that made the pump heavier, and the feedback from the field was that we want to make these pumps as light as possible. Every pound matters. So we took that back and actually ended up scrapping some plans, making new ones, and it really changed our vision. So things like that happen all the time. That's why voice of the customer is invaluable to us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Connor, that was all the questions that I had for you today. I just wanted to thank you for your time again.
Absolutely. No, it was great.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining CP&S for this next episode of the Pump It Up podcast. If you'd like to learn more about our pressure sewer systems as well as the RZR grinder, you can visit us at cranepumps.com. And a special thanks to Connor for all of his help today. And we will see you next time. Thank you.